Hi, my name is Keegan Flegner. When I was in first grade, I was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. Since then, sports have played a huge role in helping me to cope with the mental and developmental challenges of being on the spectrum. So I want to help show the world that all kinds of sports can help all kinds of people with all kinds of challenges. Welcome to Sports on the Spectrum. My guest today is Eric Reveno. Eric is currently the associate head coach of the men's basketball team at Oregon State University. Eric has 25 years of college coaching experience, previously coaching at the University of Portland, Georgia Tech, and Stanford. During his coaching career, Eric was named the West Coast Conference Coach of the Year and a top 25 recruiter in the nation by Rivals.com. Eric was also at the forefront of a movement that led to the NCAA mandating national election days as a day off for student athletes. Please join me in welcoming Eric Reveno to Sports on the Spectrum. All right, Eric. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And so I'm going to start off like I do with most of my interviews by asking about the beginning. And by that, I mean the beginning of your life. And I'll ask, what are some of your first memories of sports? And this can be watching them on TV, going to a game, following your favorite team, etc.
Given my lifelong commitment to sports and teams and athletics and how great it's been for me, my memories don't start as early. Formal athletics doesn't start as early as one might think. My early memories are stuff in the streets, just informal, running around, kids on the block doing things. Didn't do a lot. It wasn't like today's culture where you get signed up for teams as much. And I think that was a little bit of circumstance of my situation, but also just the way things were. I remember going to a clinic. One of my earliest memories going to a clinic at a local high school where Golden State Warriors player was doing a free clinic. And I remember really struggling with a drill, like it was a dribbling drill, full court thing. I had to put the ball between my legs. I had never done it before. And this is like fourth grade, something like fifth grade, something like that, where it was at an age where you think maybe you should be able to, and I couldn't. So I do remember that. It's a funny one. It's weird to me why it sticks to me, because I don't know if I was a girl, and we've gotten post Title IX era, we've gotten a lot better in terms of equality and understanding and kids understand. And she helped me do it and stuff. And I was cool with it, actually. I hadn't been socialized to think otherwise, and she was helping me with it. But I remember that. I wasn't very good. I was tall and lanky. I was a tall, lanky guy. I improved a lot in high school, grew a lot, improved a lot, had a great high school coach, and I had two real powerful mentors in high school. So my journey sort of started bubbling up in when I changed schools in seventh grade. And I had a great PE teacher and stuff like that. Looking back, powerful individuals that helped me come along.
Yeah, man, I totally am with you there in the sense two ways. First of all, the powerful individuals, I absolutely get that. My dad was one of those people, ironically enough. He coached me for a while, and I think he did a good job. Ironically enough, though, you talk about like your first memory was at a clinic and you couldn't do a drill where you couldn't dribble between your legs, because you were tall and lanky, which I could personally relate to. Now, I'm not tall per se, but like I'm taller than average. And even today, I still struggle with dribbling.
Yeah.
So
I still do too. What I demonstrate, the trick I've learned when I demonstrate, did it yesterday, when I demonstrate a dribbling attack move or something, I don't use a ball. I pan, so it's like, so I look pretty good. But the crazy thing is, I do it right-handed, and I'll sit there and I'll you can't see my hand, but I do it right-handed, and I feel really good, and I feel like I'm really got it. And they must really be getting the whole thing. The crazy thing is about that is when I do it left-handed with no ball, I still feel lame left-handed. That's like there's no ball. Like, how can I not? Like, I still feel like, it just doesn't feel right. I can't even do it without a ball left hand. So that's how bad my left hand dribble was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there, man. I'm right-handed through and through. Can't really do much with my left hand. It's just, It's for waving, really. That's it.
Right, exactly.
And word of advice, I guess, to any of your players who might be listening, it's like, if you want to embarrass your coach, get him to actually dribble with the basketball.
Right, for sure. They know that. They know.
Good, man. Well, I guess now I'll shift into, we talked about some of your first memories, but what are some of your favorite memories of sports?
Um, let's see. I would have to say, my high school state championship.
Hmm.
And what's interesting there is, like, it's a great question, and my best memories are team things, team champion. Like, we won the state championship my junior year in high school, and Menlo School. We won the large, we were Division II, play against public schools and a small private school. And we won the state championship in LA. And I didn't even know going into the year they had a state championship. I didn't know you could fly to LA and win I knew you had a section. So I didn't know I hadn't thought about it. It was, again, maybe different times, but we ended up winning it. John Pay was a senior, and he kind of put us on his back and led us, and it was great. And it was a lot of fun. I had a really big game on my 17th birthday in Oakland Coliseum Arena, and the crowd sang happy birthday to me, and I was like all tournament. So it was that was a lot of fun. And then in college, I had a lot of struggles early, and then built to success, and was part of a Stanford team that went to the NCAA tournament in the first time in 47 years. So we had a long drought in 47 years as part of that team. And then as a coached all kinds of really high level teams, Final Four and stuff. So athletics and teams and being a teammate had been really good experiences for me. And I still process how powerful all those are, and for formational, formative, I should say, they have been for me as a person, and how I continue to draw lessons from trying to be a good teammate, even more than being a leader and stuff. And so it's just a lot of fun. I mean, just a lot of just good fun.
Totally, man. I totally get how, like, and let me point out, like, you've had some pretty good individual accolades too. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've been like West Coast Conference Coach of the Year. You've been like one of the top 25 recruiters in Ralphs.com, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like you've had some pretty good individual accolades, but at the same time, the fact that you're most proud of those team championships is totally understandable, because, from a collective standpoint, you feel as if you're actually part of something bigger than yourself, and just I personally relate to that. Like, a lot of my favorite memories are, team championships, especially because that's what everyone usually is pursuing. It's like they don't care if they win MVP. They want that chip,
Yeah. Well, I think I was fortunate that, I was fortunate to be good enough to be a key cornerstone on some teams and feel like contribution. But not so good. It's not too hard to remain humble. I've never had so, and even just this kind of guy that, like, as a sophomore in high school, people weren't really sure could be a Division I athlete. And then, improving a lot and working hard and becoming, getting a scholarship to Stanford. And then you got imposter syndrome there, and you're thinking, I don't really fit and belong for a lot of reasons. And then you sort of achieve and earn that. But I was never like, the most cocky I ever was 8th grade. And that was, and that was sort of unwarranted and shot down as a freshman and whatnot. And so I went through a sort of a junior high sort of like, I'm pretty studly, but other than, and that was just false bravado on my part. But so I think that, so like someone who's really good and like just the best, I had enough exposure to know that even though I was best player on the Bay Area, the peninsula there, it wasn't that at my senior in high school, wasn't that huge a deal. I had enough humbling experiences. I think that it wasn't that hard. I see some of these players that are so darn good, and and I wonder how they're going to respond. So it's just, I feel very fortunate. But the most powerful thing is being part of great teams. I think of great teammates I've had, and I've got enough of a history now with teams to recognize the power of them.
No, I mean, totally, man. It's like you look at some of the best players in the NBA, very rarely has it been that they won a championship because they themselves were great, and only because of that. Like, you look at MJ's Bulls, the Celtics in the 80s. It's like they didn't win championships because they had the best player. It's because they had the best team.
Yeah.
Even if they also had the best player by coincidence,
Right.
That was never the sole reason. And I'll just say too, like, you talk about just on a person to person basis, it's like, as someone who played high school basketball in California, I'm with you on like the whole sectional versus state level thing. Even if I only got to like the second round of the tournament. So it's like, I'm totally relating with you there. I guess I'll move on and shift from the past sort of to the present now, and ask, what sports do you play now? And obviously we talked about basketball a lot, but are there any others? And, how did you get involved in them, and what about them appeals to you?
I don't really. So I've run a couple. Well, in the recent history, I've run a couple, not in the last couple of years, but I was running some half marathons, and because I'd gotten really heavy. I'm 6'8", and I'd gotten heavy, and when I business school and graduate school, and I just sort of shifted, and I kept eating the same, like I was still competing or something. And so I got heavy, and I got up to like 300 pounds, and then I lost that weight, and I was running, felt great. And I started doing half marathons. I enjoyed running. I didn't like the long runs, but tried to break two. I ran like 4 or 5 of them, and I tried to break 2 hours, and I couldn't quite do it. But the is where I first sort of found the joy of just sort of the individual trying to get to do that. I'm not quite built for it, but I like to think that I won the category of, like, the over 45, the over 50-year-old guy that weighs over 260 pounds. I think I was the best one in that category out there. I don't think the thing about half marathons is when you got like a little old lady passing you, it's very humbling, with like 2 knee braces on and kind of a waddle. And you're like, come on. I mean, and they're like passing you on like mile 10, and they look like they're about to die. And you're going, do I look that bad? So anyways, running was one. And then the other one, I got into ultimate Frisbee a little bit, didn't play much, but my son and I were into it when we were in Atlanta, and that was a lot of fun. I kind of keep thinking about, I want to find some, I love doing that. So, and that's, again, just sort of the something new, get better at. Basketball is tough because you never be as good as you once were. It's more about the camaraderie in the group. And I play some of that once in a while. Thinking about joining the pickleball craze. I don't know.
Oh, nice.
Generationally, I really should do it. I should try it. I think it's my era. And someone recommended it. My son's a piano player. He's a junior in high school, plays piano at a pretty good level, and classical piano. And so we've done, so I was saying, God, that would be something we could do together, and he'd be into it. And so anyways, but yeah, that's about it.
I'll tell you, I'm really vibing with that pickleball right now, because like that's all I've been hearing is like the latest craze. Like, I literally took a class in college my freshman year where we talked about like how big pickleball has become. It's like it's insane, know. So I'm totally with you there. And also, like, I ran cross country in high school my freshman year as well. So I did not run half marathons. Let me be clear. Like, that is pretty crazy in my opinion. But even so, like, running, distances, and at least for me, trying to run them fast, it's like it's a challenge. And I will stand by this to the day I die. Cross country is the hardest sport you can ever do. I don't care about basketball. I don't care about football. I don't care about any of that. Cross country is the hardest sport you can ever do.
I played water polo freshman year, and that was tough. And
water polo is pretty hard too.
We had the sun setting, 6 o'clock practice, chlorine in your eyes. There were some tough things about it, but I agree. It wasn't, I could see running is hard. Running, my daughter did well at that. Running is hard, and that a marathon is inconceivable to me. But yeah, those guys run like the guys that run a marathon run. I couldn't keep up with them for 100-yard segment of they're running 26 miles.
I mean, it's ridiculous. Like, literally, like, someone, Eliud Kipchoge, just broke the 2-hour barrier for a marathon. You're trying to run a half marathon in 2 hours.
Right. It's like that. That's where it literally is mind-boggling of what they're doing. So
yeah, no, it is truly wild, man. I have no clue, and I am not trying to be that good. Neither are you, I'm guessing, but nevertheless, even just trying to do the distance in one go, even if you're just trying to jog or stroll or whatever, it is quite the test. But I guess now let's actually talk about basketball again, because obviously that's been a very focal point of your life. And so why don't you give me a timeline of how it started and where you are today with basketball?
So I mentioned sort of how I fell into it. There's a family friend, uh, a guy, someone's dad who saw me playing another sport. I forget what the first sport was actually, but he loves the story about he's the one. It might have been baseball because I stunk at baseball.
So
And
did I.
and he said, "Hey, looked at my size. Well, you really should be playing basketball." And this was like 7th or 8th grade, and I got into it. And what hooked me was, I had some physical attributes to it. I think I could have played some football too. I didn't play football. Parents didn't really want me to. I wasn't too jazzed on. I really was enjoying basketball. So I played basketball and I got into it. And I had good mentors, like we talked about, and good coaches, and had success. And I was really fortunate. The biggest thing, the most powerful thing about basketball and athletics for me in junior high school and high school was I put in work and had good guidance. So I got results. And when I got results, I learned that, hey, working, when I see young people work and not get results, I feel badly because they're missing, it's like it's a negative reinforcement of what the returns on that work will be. If you can have a formational experience of, doing something, working at something, having some success, which I did, that is really can sort of ingrain that ethic. And so I did that. And was fortunate like that. In basketball, I became hooked on it. I loved it, and I didn't get bored doing the reps. And then I was able to play overseas, and so and then I came out of business school, and I realized what I really love is I played overseas for 4 years after graduating Stanford. I went overseas for 4 years, learned Japanese, got into business school, went to business school, came out of business school, and realized what I really loved was basketball and teaching and teams. And so I headed down that path, and then I got the opportunity to coach at Stanford. And I told my girlfriend, now wife at the time, I think, yeah. So we were close. Yeah. So it was 2 years before we got married. And so I said, hey, I'm just going to try this, see how it goes. And then the first year in '98, we went to the Final Four at Stanford.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so I got hooked on it. Like, this ain't hard. Shoot, went to the Final Four. It's easy. Got a ring. Got to go. Boy, oh, this is great. And so it was a very good deal. And then I got hooked. And then next thing you know, I'm assistant at Stanford for 9 years, a head coach at Portland for 10. Got fired there. We didn't go to the NCAA tournament. We had some success, like you said, coach of the year, great teams, but didn't quite get over the hump with Gonzaga and BYU and whatnot in the league. And so then I went to Georgia Tech, which was a fabulous experience. And now back here at Oregon State. So the teams and people I've been able to work with, the sports just continue to be very generous to me. And I love the people I work with. I love the athletes I get to work with and hang out with. I'm hanging out on a college campus and stuff. So the sport's been great.
Yeah. I have a quick follow-up question. If you did not go to the Final Four in your first year of coaching, do you think you would have stuck with it?
Well, it's funny. I mean, because I think, I was able to start as, you talk about sort of privilege and opportunity that you look back at, you kind of maybe take for granted. Like as a former player, I was able to go back to my alma mater and work for the head coach that coached me. Now, if he had moved on, he was offered the job in the early 90s at Virginia, Coach Mike Montgomery.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And he turned it down. But if he had taken it and gone a different path, I might not have had the opportunity to go to Stanford. And if I had to work my way up more after graduating from business school and having after graduating business school, my comparison opportunities were pretty good, and so then I would, if I had to start from ground zero, would I have made the leap? I was able to jump in as an assistant coach as a former player. Salary wasn't great. It wasn't, salary because it was restricted earnings position at the time. And so it wasn't like a big deal that way, but in terms of opportunity, it was tremendous. And so I was able to do that. And so it's a good question if, we hadn't had that success and then we won. Whereas if we had been like Coach Montgomery's last year and we got fired that year, would I have picked myself up off the ground, dusted myself off and gone back in there? Or would I have said the hell with it? I don't know. I was also worked at Intuit the summer between first and second year of business school on this international project in Japan. And they changed the head of international and there was a delay in them offering me a position. Well, I should say it. I never got offered a position, but there was a delay. There was something there where, like, if I had gotten offered a position and that had flowed right into a full-time position, maybe I would have got excited about that. So I definitely, it's worth acknowledging the serendipity of the path, and I think what's been beneficial for me is able to, because I've stayed on this college athletics team building path, I sort of has stacked days in terms of this understanding what it takes to build a good team and those things. Whereas if I think maybe I could have learned some different things from different avenues, but I've enjoyed this. So it's been great. But I've definitely lucky.
Yeah. I mean, look, hey, it's like, excuse me. Oftentimes, like the best things that happen to us are, we'd like to say by chance. I personally don't think that's true, but at the same time, they certainly seem to be in place at the right place in the right time. It's like they just happen, and then boom, it's like you're on your way to the Final Four, and you've now been coaching for over 25 years. It's like,
Yeah,
it just
crazy.
happens.
Yeah.
And I guess I would just, add on, it's like, you talk about, going from playing to coaching. I guess I would like ask, like, what got you into like specifically like the coaching aspect, in the sense that, okay, I've played the game as far as I can go. It's like, and now I'm in this like crossroad. It's like, what do I want to do? Do I want to stick with it and try this, or I want to go to a different path? Like what led you to stick with the coaching, or at least go into the coaching, compared to if you just left the game?
I think just my passion for it, just the joy, of doing the work, got me into it. Like just being in a gym, working with guys, being around other coaches. I really like coaches. I really like athletic departments, the folks in athletic departments. It's like, someone works at a company that may seem nondescript to you or I, but they're really got a good culture, and they're an envelope manufacturer or something, but someone really loves the work, but they just love the work that they're doing. The people they work with, Midwest town, they're the small town, it's a good community, they know each other. Coaching is like that. Like there's a familiarity, there's a youthfulness to it that I really appreciate now, as I've gotten older. I feel like coaching young people made me a better parent. I feel like being a parent made me a better coach. I feel like all that's been has worked to my benefit. But I definitely think the transition was a lot of it, and a lot of it was it's what I knew. Like I felt I knew basketball at a high level, like your area of expertise. So even maybe before some of the coaching passion was there, it was the confidence that I know my stuff here. And so I'm going to follow that which I know, and the passion would come. Yes, I love the game, but it was more as a participant and a practitioner than as a fan. And so by getting after it, so I just followed that is what it was,
No, man, look, it's like, there's the saying, it's like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So the fact that you were able to find that is good. And honestly, for me, what blows my mind in some ways, at least as someone who's now in college, it's like, I've gone from just looking at these things and saying like, oh, this happens, to be like, oh, I'm now in this. Like, this is part of my life now. And like, there are other people my age where this is part of their life. Like I got friends from high school who are like D1 recruits right now. So to see that going on, it's just like, wow, time is like blown by. So I totally get where like that.
Trust me, it keeps blowing by.
I know. That's what I keep hearing.
The winds don't slow. You can kid yourself, but the winds don't slow. They keep going. It keeps blowing. It's all right.
No, totally, man. And I guess, you talk about the winds and like how we can shape them. And I'm actually curious about this personally, because I think it's really interesting. And that's because I'd like to briefly discuss your efforts to get the NCAA to mandate national election days as a day off for student athletes. And I'd like to ask, why was that important? And what should people understand about why it needed to be done? Because that's really interesting to me.
So back when after post George Floyd, 2020, in Atlanta, and it was early June 1st to be exact, and we had a Zoom call, and we couldn't meet COVID. We talked about No, it wasn't COVID. We had a Zoom call, and yeah, it was it was COVID. We had a Zoom call and the team meeting, and we were all talking about frustration. There'd also been the murder of a runner in Atlanta, or not
Yeah,
Atlanta,
Ahmaud
Georgia,
Arbery.
Arbery, yeah. And those two events, and they're talking about being a African American athlete on Georgia Tech's team, and the guys are sitting there telling me that they don't like. They told me, like, they if they're going out somewhere, they like to wear their Georgia Tech gear so that if they get stopped, they're recognized, and like just
Right.
this whole different existence than I had or have to prepare my son for. And that broke my heart. And then one of the players spoke up and said, you guys are all speaking, like talking about how upset you are about these things, how you're talking about maybe potentially going out and protesting, but what do you guys vote? Does anyone vote? And none of them had really thought about it, really voted, really done anything. When it came around, it was moderated conversation, big team Zoom. It comes around to me, and I was sort of blown away by the emotion of the situation and didn't know what to say. And I felt really badly that these 18 to 24-year-olds had this weight and seriousness that they had to deal with. It's like they shouldn't have to have these concerns. They should be trying to get their degree, playing hoops. It's just, and so like old people should have these heavier concerns. It should,
Right.
like, you got life in front of you, and it's just, and so it broke my heart. And I said, I got emotional. I said, look, I don't know if I haven't done enough. I promise I'll do more. I promise. I didn't really say anything of substance like that, but I made a commitment to do more. And I went to sleep, and I went to sleep early. I sort of, after the call around 9 o'clock, I just was sort of overwhelmed, went to sleep, woke up early, and I woke up with this conviction. I said, we've got to do more. We got to do something about voting. They got to vote. And so, between the players' comment about voting, my overwhelming emotion, I felt like we had to do something about voting. We have to create the space so that they could vote. So you ask about the need. In all my years of college athletics, at that point, of almost 25 years of college athletics at Stanford, Portland, and Georgia Tech, I had never been a part of a staff meeting, a team meeting, or any interaction with a player where we talked about voting. So never at a staff meeting did they say, hey, make sure your athletes are aware of the coming election. They got to register by, September 20th, or,
Yeah.
hey, there's some resources. So-and-so's here if you have questions. I never said at a team meeting, hey, are you guys registered? I never said, hey, here, I never sent them a link that said, hey, do this. I never did, and so it was like this weight of like, God darn, I talked this good game about doing this and helping build a better future. And I'm not educating this. We talk about financial planning. Every college athlete graduates with the understanding of compounding interest, because they go to these mandatory things that say, if you invest $1,000 a month, or $100 a month for, and then by the time you're 50, it's going to be worth, and so they get that stuff, but we don't talk about voting, and we don't talk to them. And then you can, and it's nonpartisan, it's just engage. And so
Right.
teach them what it means to be a good citizen. So that's where I leaned into it. And I thought the NCAA, I thought we could get the NCAA to make it an off day so that players had the space to go vote, and they didn't have practice, a game. They could go. In Atlanta, a lot of times it means waiting in line for hours. And so so we were able to, I then went after it. I tweeted about it, got some I figured out how to get the rule changed, and we got the rule changed. So now every Tuesday of November, first Tuesday of November, is off. And there's actually a waiver now. There's actually a process now where you can play that day if you do something else and provide the space. And it's softened a little bit, but it raised the attention. It's in the rule books, and it's about civic engagement. So I felt it was needed. We talk a good game about being educators and whatnot. I thought it was an area we could do much better.
No, man, look, I mean, it's like, I don't talk about this stuff on this show a lot, but it's like, voting is important in the sense, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or whatever, it's like doing your duty to vote. It's like it makes a difference in the sense you're at least giving your voice. And I
Yeah.
think, and honestly, it's not too dissimilar from what I'm trying to do here. It's like I'm trying to give people a voice, and it's just up to them to take that chance and use their voice, even if it's in a subtle way, like throwing a paper into a ballot box, it's like
Yeah.
it matters. And like what did that mean to you when you see those guys like feel that way about certain things? Like what did you recognize out of that?
Well, to me, the thing that was the thing that, and this is another point on this that's really important. College kids, in my opinion, the ones I work with, don't necessarily. There's too many people trying to appeal to their altruistic motivations to make the world a better place, or to make the future better, to help homelessness, to fix the climate. And what I think is important is what I saw was a hopelessness and helplessness on what they can do to control their own future. So what I learned in the 6, 8, 10 months after that was what you're doing by teaching them how to vote, in teaching them how to engage, is how to impact their own future. So you start by picturing, like, what do you want? What do you want the police of your town? How do you want the police of your town to look and behave? How do you want our border protected, if at all? It's not about whether you want a wall or don't want a wall. It's about whether, like, how do you want, like, so think about the world you want to live in. And so my generation didn't think like that. I get frustrated with my generation. They got the greatest generation before us. We got the worst name for my generation, but like, we didn't engage like that. We were sort of like, we thought that things were fixed, especially when President Obama became president. And and you just start thinking things are but even if you want how you want your future, whether it's do you want what sort of thing, how do you feel about homelessness? Does that impact your life, that like you when you go to the store, that people are asking, like, forget, it's not about helping their lives. It can be, but you have to make that choice. So getting control of your future. But the thing we learned in the process was, as we've worked and I got together with our coaches, is that people don't know how to connect those dots of how voting for sheriff impacts their life, how voting for the county tax assessor, and I tried to do it here in Corvallis when school board. So you look at it as a school board, and these book bannings, and like, maybe you think these books shouldn't be in the schools, but like, you vote for those people. And I'm looking in Corvallis, and there's only one person running for these few different, I have one choice. It's this I don't have a choice. It's like these persons are the only people running. And so what does that mean for these school boards? And then, like, the fact that we elect judges, do you think, if certain populations are discriminately judged against, then how do you want, like, you get to choose judges. I remember this one sheriff's name. I did this once. His sheriff's name, I was really like, his nickname was like, wasn't Rocky, but he had a nickname on its thing. Like, it was just a little bit, but like, because you're trying to, and then talking to them about how you find information. So Ballotpedia is a great nonpartisan site that has your ballot and describes the candidate. You can learn from it. So all this educational stuff that you're trying to get to them. And I'll tell you, it's like nutrition. It's like sleep taught, it's like mental health. Things that like, and I believe like voting and engaging helps mental health. I think like being engaged and having a sense of agency that I can control my future, that I have an impact, will help, and feeling connected to your community improves your mental health. And so tying it all together for them and helping them do that in a way, I think. But what I was going to say is, when you talk about this stuff, some of them take it a little, like, some of them might be ready to hear the message, and some won't be. Some are like, oh, coach, I'm gonna go relax. I'm tired from practice, or, hey, I'm going to the party this weekend. But then maybe at some point, 25, 26, 27, the message will hit them, and it'll seep in there. So it's not it's our responsibility to preach this stuff and to give them the tools and sort of, so maybe as a freshman, they're not quite, vibing with it, but as a senior, they're getting it, and so we just make that progress. So just that whole thought process from a coach's standpoint, and Steve Kerr's been a great example.
Totally.
Greg Popovich, these coaches that behave in a way that put the person first and show that this exemplifies the best way to win. So like, hey, I can help my athletes vote, and the reason I'm going to do it is because it's going to help us win. It's not like I'm putting this above winning. Again, It's mental health, team strength, team sense of community actually will help your chances to win. So I got all excited about that. And, that's just this conversation. I got excited about, once I realized how it really was consistent with what I did, not something different, it became really exciting and fun.
No, totally, man. And I'll just say, like, in terms of getting information about voting, like you were talking about earlier, as someone, who's picking up new crazes left and right, I'll just say for anyone listening who's age appropriate to watch this, go watch Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. It's very good for watching stuff about voting and election stuff. Like, and it's very funny. But, building off your point of like how this kind of stuff, like it helps you to win in more ways than one. I think that's very accurate. Like just by doing something important and feeling like you're taking control too, like feeling like you have control over what your life is going to be like, even if it's in a way that seems like furthest away, like from one person to the next person, it's like, it still makes a difference. And the fact that you get to feel like you have a say in that, I think for a lot of people is very, very reassuring. And as you said, that's why, for their mental health, it can actually do a lot of wonders in the sense they feel like, I can control, how other people will look at me, in the sense that, if I give my voice, then the next person can give their voice. And when we add it all up together, we can see what kind of environment we live in and hopefully make it more appropriate for us and for others. And so I guess building on that a little, I'll kind of talk more about mental health. And I'll start with a question very in relation with that, which is that when you hear the term mental health, what pops into your head and what does it mean to you?
Again, my generation is probably a lot of us have transformed. It used to be, mental health was, toughness to overcome adversity, and push through, not sleep for a few nights in a row, and power through and be okay, and then if something happened to you and you weren't okay, then you were having trouble recovering from a loss of a family member, or you're having trouble dealing with something. There was stigma attached to it, and that going away, and sort of this more balanced, sort of holistic understanding of mental health, and like as a foundational piece to being strong, and what being strong means, and what being a strong male means. The male identity, macho team guy. So, and it's an ongoing thing, on like working with young guys on sort of being what it means to be a strong man, and the sensitivity of that, both starting with yourself. And so I think, starting to like what's appropriate to let yourself off the hook. We all sort of juggle with that. Like, am I being soft on myself, letting myself off the hook too? Is this one where I should just strap up my boots and push on, or is this one where I should go curl up in bed and take a nap, and so those kinds of like dealing with that to me is mental health. And then at some point recognizing when you need professional help and being open to that, and mental health in a team environment is being open to the fact that you having empathy for where everyone comes from and what they're going through. And someone has we all face different challenges, and having empathy for that, but also being mentally healthy in terms of your own attitudes about your own well-being and taking care of yourself and learning to do that. And as a coach, trying to help people do that is a very dynamic and challenging thing. And so, because you want to, people like this workout's hard, you got to push through. What days do you just because you don't feel like doing something? So it's a very interesting thing, but I think that makes it an interesting learning ground.
No, man, I'm totally with you there. Like, to me, there's a difference between being strong and being tough. Because if you're tough, it's like you're basically trying to project something that isn't fully true and even necessarily like, real, in the sense that, like, if you're there's a phrase like act tough. It's like you're trying to create a wall that hopefully no one can break down so they can see what lies behind it. But if you're strong, it's like you're taking the steps, whether they look like they're the right move or not, just to make yourself feel like, you can do something, or you can feel good about yourself. So that way you can be happy and be able to do the things you want to do with your life. It's like having these kinds of problems and finding ways to deal with them as compared to ignoring them or, treating them as something they're not. It's like that will only cause you problems. It's basically going to force the wall to fall on you in a sense, because you're not going to be able to keep it up forever. But it's like, just to take these things head on and be open about them to others. It's like, it's honestly going to help others to pull you up, so you don't even need the wall to hide the fact that you're down in the first place. It's just, it kind of,
you make a great point there. It's like, I mean, the difference between the objective is not to appear or act tough, but to be healthy. And then if you were coming from a healthy place, you might be able to, if you're a healthy place, you're going to be able to respond with what could maybe be described as tough responses. So like, if you're healthy and mentally strong and you trip in that half marathon, you're more likely to, look at your knee, see that it's scraped up, you're fine, walk a mile, figure out you're healthy and good, and start running again and finish the race. And so, whereas if you're all worried about your appearances, you're not, it's just, so, I mean, it's like, I think you're agree. I think it was too much just about appearances. And that's where like the social media stuff and that whole thing has brought up a whole, mental health problem, because you're more locked into appearances versus reality, and you're trying to, and we all do it, we don't want to put a bad picture of ourselves up necessarily, or, you don't. And so it's either you stay away or you're curating all your pictures to death, and so it's just, but that's just sort of developing a healthy attitude where this is who I am. I look like this. Sometimes I look like this. Sometimes it's no big deal. And for women and girls, it's really hard. Guys are a little luckier that way, but, it's hard, but and again, that's my perspective. So I shouldn't say that. For some guys, it's really hard, and so anyways, but yeah, that stuff is about trying to be healthy and having these types of conversations where it's okay to have this conversation. And for someone to say like, shoot, I'm overly concerned about how I look in this picture, God, I wish I wasn't as concerned, just to be mentally aware of that, like, God, I wish I could just put that, but, I think it's all these conversations are good. And I think we're doing a good job in college athletics and getting better at that. And I'd actually, like you said, like to tie the voting and civic engagement into that, because I think being a part of a community and being engaged in a community, and college campuses are beautiful places that way. And so for getting people to get out of their railroad tracks of what they're doing and to venture into other groups is tremendously healthy for them.
No, man, totally. I mean, just to draw sort of another analogy here, excuse me. It's like there's a difference between solving a problem and simply being aware, because like the fact of the matter is this whole thing is not supposed to be a one size fits all, or take one step, you're done. No, it's not that easy. But the fact that, just trying to get it started in some way or another, that's a huge step. Like it's like they say, the first step is always the hardest, but the fact of the matter is once you take that step, you are able to make so much progress that you're able to then take the next step and the next step and the next step. And it just gets easier over time until eventually it's like you're sprinting the distance of a marathon, essentially.
Right. And that's where, like, just for this NCAA, what we called all vote, no play day, just this one day off, like that was part of the concept, was just creating the habit of having this day off. And then we knew people would fill it in differently. It's a celebration, a party, like a 4th of July thing. There's going to the food shelter and help food, and helping out. There's all kinds of things ways you could engage. You could engage with the team conversation. We went at Georgia Tech. We went to the Civil Rights Museum. You can do different things, but by just creating that space for that day, and it'll evolve and change. That's what was now that's in the rule books. It's going to take a real jerk to get it out of the rule book. And so it's like, it's good that it's in there, and that's all we wanted. And just having these conversations about it. It's a process of evolvement, and of evolution, and getting, and coaches to recognize it's not that hard for us to help these athletes and feel okay with these things. And it's like mental health. We're letting them know that there's healthcare providers on campus, that there's resources, that they can, if they want to talk to somebody. A head coach telling a team that is really powerful. It sort of gives permission to ask for help. And so saying, hey, what's your plan to get to the polls this year? You're going to vote by mail? Do you want to vote in your election at home? Do you want to vote? It's just a powerful thing that someone can do by just showing that that's important, and then it would, let alone whether if you're willing to give them a ride, or you're willing to, I learned this, though. It's against the law to take someone's absentee ballot and mail it for them. Not that I did that. I didn't break the law. Learned it. I learned it through some people that say you can't drop it in the mailbox for them. They have to do it themselves, but you can get them the ballot. You can get, and then they can mail it, and you can help them, but you can help them learn about stuff, but they got to do it, sign it, and take it in and put it in the box themselves. So,
yeah, no voter fraud here. All right. We don't want
exactly.
Yeah.
Because when I put all my 5 ballots in, no, just kidding.
Yeah, that's great, man. I guess, we talk about the general concept, but I'd be curious to ask, how often, if at all, have you come across any specific people, and you don't have to name names here, that's not the point, but how often have you come across people who you believed had some type of mental or emotional condition? This can be autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression, and you don't even have to know for sure. It can just be an instinct, like you saw them do certain things that made you believe that. But did any of them stick out to you or make an impression? If so, why? And in your interactions with them, did you ever make any adjustments with how you interacted with them?
Yeah. There's probably, yes, every group of 12 to 15 guys, has a couple guys like that, and I even became aware, at Stanford, I coached Jason Collins, who later became the first openly gay NBA player. And I didn't know he was gay when I coached him. And that was educational for me, because the fact is I probably have coached others, and so being sensitive to that. God, did I ever say anything that made him feel uncomfortable? Or did I ever, in an old man Neanderthal way, not have the proper sensitivity? I'm sure you correct your dad on stuff too. We're learning, us old guys, we try. But so like that thing, but on every 12 to 15 group of guys, there's someone that, like you say, he really sort of overly fixates on this, the way he learns is that, and you try to adjust appropriately. And sometimes it's just a competitive thing where, like, you can't talk to him. Jose Alvarado plays for New Orleans Pelicans now. He's really hard to coach in the middle of a competition because he's so seeing red and competing. He can't. And so trying to help him calm down. Now, are there past experiences that make him that way? You tend not to get into, like, why he gets, what's his, but some coaches do that more than others. I just sort of coach what I see in front of me and try to be empathetic to where they're coming from. And I try to be forceful too, like, hey, no, relax, and see if that works, or I try to, Jose is great though. He was one of the most fun players to coach, but, and part of it was that he was a challenge that way and he would admit it. I've had a player once who I thought had some past trauma with male authority figures and how serious that trauma was. I was always kind of curious and felt badly for him. There was a trust issue there. Like, I just felt like there was always going to be a barrier there and he wasn't going to let himself in. And I didn't keep trying. I actually met with him and a counselor once just to help improve our communication, like marriage counseling. And he was a good sport about it. We sort of both laughed about it. It was marriage counseling stuff. I always felt like there was something else there that he didn't trust, and where that came from, I don't know. So yeah, you deal with different things and different people and it's hard, but it's fun. It's hard, I'm saying, but it's also fun. What I try to do is not, if I start going down I can't even figure out my old past traumas or how things, my own issues, like where I rank on this. I can't, so I don't try to overanalyze. I just try to be empathetic and like try to adjust to where they're coming from. But then you've got standards and values of communication that they've got to uphold. And so like being a parent, like, oh, he might be acting out because of this, but at some point it's unacceptable. So you just sort of adjust. Long answer for that, but
Oh no, it's fine. Say what you gotta say, man. I'm all ears. And I think that's a very good point. What you talked about, how like it's at the end of the day, even if you have no experience on this or no like confidence in your ability to help them, just being empathetic and just showing them you care, like, and you want to see them happy, it's like that goes a long way towards making someone feel like, okay, I know I've got this person in my corner. Now I have the confidence to do something, whether it be with myself or with them or with someone else, to, address this problem or just find ways to make it easier. It's at the end of the day, it's just not about, it's like I said earlier, it's not about even solving the problem. It's just about taking the first step to address it, even if it's a bad first step.
I wish I had heard you say that when I was a younger coach, because that's really powerful, because the empathy part, I was always kind of empathetic, and the not solving it or trying to do that is all very good. What the one thing that I've tried to improve, and this could be true for, what's interesting, it's not just my player-coach relationships, but you could argue this for a lot of my relationships, and I've tried to improve upon it by just communicating better, is that people in my life don't know how much I care about them, and so like players didn't know, I said mainly players didn't know, I had some players graduate that didn't know how much I cared about them. And that, sort of broke my heart a little bit. If they went through something, like a player had his father pass away, like if they went through something, then they saw it, if they got injured. But unless there was sort of that, unless they experienced something, they didn't necessarily see it. I didn't think that was necessarily fair. Like, you only got to see how much I cared if you suffered, like that. So I tried, and that was on me, just to let them know in little ways and big ways. And the way I showed up for them, trying to be better at that. So, I think you're right. Like being empathetic, being willing to vulnerable to letting people know you care. And then all of a sudden just being open to where that takes you, because they may or may not. Like this one player, I let him know I cared, but he just wasn't ready to take it, I don't think. And so I gave it, and that around that time I was realizing, like, these guys got to know I care for them, and I got to show it. And here's how I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to, and so being more intentional with that. And then, but then you're right. Then where that goes is it's a human response and reaction, and sort of where it goes. And some people are looking for that relationship from their coach, and some aren't, and some are ready for it in this point in their life, and some aren't. And so that's, it's cool. I love coaching the age group. I love coaching 18 to 24-year-olds, because it's just there's so much potential and so much time for, so much potential. Just the impact on their lives can be so great. I envy high school coaches are that way too, but they're less formative and less. I like the more intensity and of the basketball and the focus at this age. But yeah, you can make a difference.
I mean, I'll say this as someone who is between the ages of 18 and 24, it's like I can tell you we're all soul searching right now for like, we don't know what we're doing, we don't know what we want to do with our life. Like, please help us,
Yeah.
even if some of us would never admit it, like, believe me, we're looking for answers and we'll take them however we can get them. And I guess I'll ask now, we talked about like, how, taking that first step is impactful, showing empathy, to anyone going through this. But I'd also ask, like, aside from what we can do, how do sports, and specifically basketball, because you've had a lot of experience, how do they help you better understand and or address the mental, emotional, and developmental challenges that you've encountered? And how do they benefit those who have them in ways that things other than sports can't do?
I think the biggest thing sports do is they expose character and personality by challenging people in a safe environment. So you get a bad call, you are given instruction, you make a shot, you miss a shot, you make a mistake, you fall down, you recover, you don't recover, you win, you lose. You have these, and all those things I just listed. I mean, getting injured and physically, carrying your ACL, that's beyond the scope of sort of this game of uncomfortable. That's your physical health, but you get challenged in a way that tests you. I saw that, but I saw it in my son. He plays piano, and when he was younger and he's practicing, and he would get mad because he was doing something. He'd get mad. He'd be in the front room of our house in Atlanta, and all of a sudden I'd hear him hit the keyboard. Even one time I'd go in there in the front room, I'd start reading in the room and listening to him play, and I'd doze off. And I remember one time he, like, all of a sudden, boom, and slam, whoa, like he just slams the keyboard. But when you expose yourself to that level of frustration, it's a learning opportunity. Like, you don't have to just push it back down. You can kind of take a deep breath. What's your coping mechanism? What's your self-soothing mechanism to self-correct? Like, do you need a coach to tell you to relax, or can you take a deep breath? Do you count to 10? What are your tools for handling that? What are your tools for recovering from losing? What are your tools from having a bad teammate, a broken trust? Like, all those things are it's just a great training ground for just sort of dealing with stuff. And so as a coach, you try to help people navigate that stuff, and you say, okay, you missed that shot, but it doesn't matter. We're working on your form. But coach, I'm supposed to try to make every shot. No, we're trying to work on your form. So what you're teaching them is process is important. It's not always outcome oriented, So then when someone's writing something, hopefully they're writing something and they're just trying to get something down on paper that feels good for them, that expresses their thought. They're not going to be overly critical of themselves. So yeah, so that's that sort of getting people in their uncomfortable zone and helping them deal with it is what basketball and sport teaches you.
No, man, absolutely. I can definitely relate to that in the sense, for me, basketball was like a great way for me to basically, I know this is weird, but I hope you get it. This, to me, basketball was like Fight Club almost, in the sense, like, it lets you vent your frustrations and at the same time learn how to deal with them in a safe space where, it's okay to fail. It's okay to, make mistakes, and it's okay to confront your biggest challenges, your biggest fears, because there are people around you and an environment around you that's going to help you to fix them and get better at all of them, bit by bit. And that is like that makes everything else become easier. Like, once again, it's like it makes that first step become easier, essentially.
Right.
It's like the way it's set up, it makes taking the steps easier. It doesn't eliminate the steps, but it makes it easier for you. Like, it's comparing, like, taking your first step in sand to just on a sidewalk. It's like
Right.
you move much more solidly in terms of just putting one foot in front of the other.
Well, you raise
I
a good,
guess go
yeah,
ahead.
you raise a good point about it being an outlet too, like just a physical outlet to, like, you're frustrated, like you're talking for youth, just to have this, like to like Fight Club, just let some stuff out, that's coming from a different place, even and to build relationships and stuff. So it's not just, it actually makes you more comfortable, is what I'm saying. Then it's not all about being the uncomfortable. There is a part you raise. The other side of the coin is it may be your safe place where you are more comfortable than some other places, so that's a great point. I mean, just like as a struggling teenager, you might find comfort in the simplicity and just the sitting there shooting the basket and just shooting. It's like meditation for you. It's just sort of clears your mind. It's a physical activity that, as older people, to feel worry about video games because you're not getting that physical sort of just meditative thing. But anyway, so it's like that's a great point.
Yeah, and let me be very clear. I know I came up with that Fight Club analogy, but I am in no way endorsing Fight Club. Okay, no Fight Club for me. All right.
Me neither. I don't like getting hit. I don't really enjoy hitting anybody.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
not
no,
fun.
I don't need that.
Yeah, no, that's why we have basketball. Okay, so
exactly. Yeah, I don't mind bumping into someone a little hard on the hoops court. No harm, no foul. But
yeah, exactly.
That I'm okay with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just don't have anyone spit on you. Don't want another Rajon Rondo incident.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I guess before I ask my final, I would just ask if you have any other thoughts or suggestions you'd want to share with us today.
No, just appreciate the opportunity to be on. It's been fun talking to you. It's about, I'm far from an expert. I think the best thing I learned in school was to keep learning and to,
Totally.
And just try to keep learning, exploring, and basketball has been great for me for that. And I really enjoy helping others do that.
No, man, it's I mean, look, obviously, you're what, twice my age, maybe even 3 times, no offense. But it's like, you're still learning.
We'll go with 2.5 times. We'll go with 2.
Yeah, that we'll call it even. But it's like, you're still learning, and it's like, and you point out you're not an expert. You don't have to be an expert. We talk about it. It's like, you don't have to know anything, but if, just being empathetic or whatever, reaching out to a person, it's like, that makes a huge difference. So, I appreciate you having us on and sharing, how much you've tried to do that and are still trying in a lot of great ways. And just, the difference it's having on a lot of people. I mean, look where it's gotten you.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I guess I'll wrap things up now and ask the question I always end with, because I think it's a great way to leave anyone listening with, if they remember anything, which is that although much progress has been made in recent years, there can still be a stigma associated with mental, emotional, and developmental challenges. So what is the one thing that you want someone listening to this podcast to know about your experiences with these challenges that they should better understand or appreciate?
Just the idea that we all need to have more empathy, that we don't know where people are coming from. And that some of these things that can be labeled make people wonderful, and that they make that everybody has wonderful attributes to bring to a relationship and can offer unbelievable, vibrant interactions and relationships, and you've got to start with empathy to see that. It's like walking into a movie and going, I'm sure this is going to suck. It's like but just being open-minded, and you get busy, and I try to slow myself down and see things. And, but that would be my main thing. It's just for me, it's just that, these things, everything, that people could be very special in a lot of wonderful ways, and to expose yourself and open yourself to these things is enriching. Again, it's like the voting. It comes back to, like, you vote because it makes your life better. It's not about being empathy. Empathy is actually going to enhance you, is what
right.
so.
No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense once again, in the sense that it's like, I'll use some basketball terms here in the sense like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't, guard a guard because I'm slow because I'm 6'10", well, it's like, okay, if you're 6'10", then why don't you get back in the post and block some shots for us? It's like, you know, it's like what makes you bad at one thing or even seemingly bad at anything. It's like can make you really good at something else at the same time, and it's just about finding that thing, that will help you be happy and be able to, live a worthwhile life because it's just, it's all about, you know, um, finding a way to make the world a better place. And, you talk about the voting, it's like, that's one way you can do it. You can just, again, put a piece of paper in a ballot box. It's like, and I'm not saying elections would come down to one vote often, but you never know. So it's like just to have that kind of mindset that you can actually do something if you just try to find out what it is. It's just like it can make a real difference in a lot of ways. And when it comes to stuff like mental health and these challenges, there is a lot of ways and easy ways that I think people can make a real difference. And I'm glad to hear that you've taken a lot of steps towards contributing to that. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's very nice of you.
Yeah. Well, all right, Eric, I'd just love to say thank you so much for joining us again. If anyone here listening watches college basketball, go check out Oregon State next season. Hopefully they'll do well. Hopefully make it to the big dance this time. That would be nice.
We're ready to go. Yep.
Good.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'll be cheering you guys on all the way, man. But yeah, no, until then, thanks so much for joining us. And I hope to talk with you again soon, man.
All right. Thank you. Nice talking to you.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode today. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and share it with others. And if you're looking for more great content, you can subscribe or follow us on this platform or go to our website at www.sportsonthespectrum.net. And if you think that you'd have a story worth sharing, don't hesitate to fill out a form on our website for the opportunity to be a guest on a future episode. Until then, be sure to stay safe, have fun, get dirty, and I will see you on the next episode of Sports on the Spectrum.